It is time for us to finish up our chapter of Watsons Go to Birmingham. We left off at a pretty interesting part. It seems like someone could be in a little trouble. I guess my ears couldn't take it, so they just stopped listening. I could see people everywhere making their mouths go like they were screaming and pointing and yelling, but I didn't hear anything. I saw Mama and Dad and Bai holding onto each other, all three of them looking like they were crazy and trying to keep each other away from the pile of rocks that used to be the front of the church. Mama was so upset that she even forgot to cover the space in her front teeth. I couldn't hear her, but I'd bet $1,000,000 she was shouting, "Why?" over and over, like a real nut. It looked like Dad's mouth was yelling, "Joetta." I was kind of surprised no adult stopped me from walking right up to the church. I got right next to where the door used to be when the guy came out with a little girl in his arms. He had on the same thing Dad did, a t-shirt and pajama pants, but it looked like he'd been painting with red paint. The little girl had on a blue dress and little blue frilly socks and black shiny shoes. I looked into the church and saw smoke and dust flying around like a tornado was in there. One light from the ceiling was still hanging down by a wire, flickering and swinging back and forth. And every once in a while, I could see stuff inside. I could see a couple of grown-ups moving around, looking lost, trying to pick things up. Then the smoke would cover them, and then the bulb would flicker out, and they'd disappear. I could see Bibles and coloring books thrown all over the place. Then they'd get covered by smoke. I could see shiny black shoe lying halfway underneath some concrete. Then it got covered with smoke. And then the light bulb flickered again. I bent down to pull the shoe from under the concrete and tugged and pulled at it, but it felt like something was pulling it back. All the hair on my head jumped up to attention. The light flickered back on and the smoke cleared, and I could see that hanging on the other end of the shoe was a giant gray hand with cold, hard, square fingers. Oh, I looked up and saw a familiar guy, and before he got covered with smoke, he looked at me, and I saw he had a big square shoulders and nothing where his face should have been. The wool poo. Oh man, I gave the shoe one more tug, hard tug, and it popped loose from the frilly white sock. I got real scared. I walked as slowly and quietly as I could out of the church. Maybe if I moved quietly, he wouldn't come for me. Maybe if I walked and didn't look back, he'd leave me alone. I walked past where the adults were still screaming and pointing. I walked past where the guy had set the little girl in blue right next to where someone else had set a little girl in red. I knew if Joey sat down next to those two, their dresses would make the red, white, and blue of the American flag. Grown-ups were kneeling down by them, and the adults' hands fluttered down toward the little girls. Then before they touched anything, fluttered back up over and over. Their hands looked like little flocks of brown sparrows that were too nervous to land. I walked past people lying around in little balls on the grass, crying and twitching. I walked past people squeezing each other and shaking. I walked past people hugging trees and telephone poles, looking like they were afraid they might fly off the earth if they let go. I walked past 1,000,000 people with their mouths wide open and no sounds coming out. I didn't look behind me and walked back as quick as I could to Grandma Sand's house. I felt like I floated up the front stairs. Then I made sure the screen door didn't slam and took my shoes off and went and sat on my bed. I hadn't remembered to make it that morning, so I got up and tucked the sheets in the fluffed up my pillow like Mama does. I sat back on the bed and looked down at my hands. They were acting like nervous little sparrows too, so I squeezed them between my knees. I reached in my pocket and took out the shiny shoe when me and the wool poo were trying to grab it away from each other. The back part of it got ripped. Man, the shoe was ripped like it was made out of paper. The picture of the little white boy with the girl's hairdo and the dog was torn right in half. All that was left was the dog smiling at me like he'd just eaten a cat. I tried to remember if I'd been mean to Joey this morning. I guessed I hadn't. I never did tell her how she helped Bai save my life in the water. I guess I should have. Where'd you go? How you get back here so fast? How come you changed your clothes? My ears had decided to work again. I looked up toward the door, but stopped looking when I saw the white frilly socks standing on the wooden floor in front of my door. I guess the wool pool was taking Joey around for her last visits. I was afraid to look up. I was afraid to look at her face. I knew I'd see the wool poo rope tied around her waist. Hi, Joey, was all I could think of saying. Where'd Mama and Daddy? Oh, you'll probably get to see them next. He takes you around to see your family before you go. She sat beside me on the bed. I still wouldn't look at her. I dropped the shoe and used my knees to stop the sparrows from fluttering around. Oh man, this is very scary. I'd seen the two little girls on the grass in the red and blue dress, and I didn't want to see my little sister that way too. What's wrong with you, Kenny? How come you're looking so funny? I guess I should have told you thanks for saving my life. Huh? It is too late to tell you that. Joey didn't say anything for a second, then got up off the bed. Why are you acting so crazy? Crazy. Where's Mom and Dad? What's that you dropped? Were you trying to hide? She picked her shoe up from where I dropped it. Oh, Kenny, whose shoe is this? What did you do to it? It's yours, Joey. I got it from the wool poo. You better quit trying to scare me, Kenny, or I'm going to tell Mama. This better not be my shoe or you'll be in big trouble, Buster. Joey walked out of my room, but I still couldn't look at her. The wool poo was pushing, stopping her away. Joey? After a second, she came back into my bedroom. What? She was sounding real mean. I didn't look up. I kept looking at my hands. I love you. Whop! The shiny, ripped black shoe hit me right in my chest. Whose shoe is that? I finally looked up to see what Joey looked like. There were no ropes around her waist, and nobody with square toes was hanging around. But what really surprised me was Joey had both of her shiny black shoes in her hands. She'd taken them off at the front door. Kenneth Bernard Watson, you better tell me what's going on, or I'm really going to tell. I'm not playing with you. Joey was imitating Mama so much that she didn't say Bernard. She said Bernard. Joey, didn't you go to Sunday school? You know I did. Don't you know what happened? Joey sat back down next to me. Kenny, I'm not playing with you. Why are you acting so weird? Her voice was starting to get all choky. Why aren't you still in that church? It was so hot in there that I went and stood on the porch and saw you. Saw me? Where? Kenny, you better stop this nonsense. You know you waved at me from across the street. You know when I tried to come to you, you kept laughing and running in front of me. You know I chased you all the way down that street. Joey got a funny look on her face. But you had on different clothes. Joey's voice was getting higher in everything she said. And when she was done, she was sounding real crazy. Joey, That's it. You're through this time, mister. You don't know when to stop teasing, do you? That's it. I'm telling on you. Joey stood up and ran up the stairs screaming, Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. I could hear Grandma Sands moving around upstairs, and she finally clomped down the steps and came into my room. Joey was hanging on her arm, still screaming. Grandma Sands must have real thin blood because even though it was hot as a furnace in the house, she had on a big, thick nightgown and big, thick robe. The smell of baby powder came into the room a second after she did. What on earth are you all doing raising this much cane this early in the morning? Joetta, honey, stop this noise. Kenny, what's wrong with this child? Joetta finally said, He's trying to scare me, Grandma Sands. He won't tell me where Mommy is. Joey kept boo-hooing like a real idiot. Kenneth, where's Wellona and Daniel? Grandma Sands pulled Joey off her leg and held her shoulders, then gave her a little shake. Joetta, you stop this noise. Grandma Sands can't handle this much noise this early, sweetheart. A bell went off in my head. The wool poo had missed Joey. He wasn't having much luck at all with any of the weird Watsons. I had to go to church to get Mama and Dad and Byron. Grandma Sands said, Well, what are all them sirens doing? Lord, has the whole world gone mad today? Where's your Mama and Daddy? The last thing I heard was Grandma Sands yelling, Boy, if you slam that door like that again, I looked down and saw my socks flying over the Alabama mud. That's the end of our chapter. And that's going to be it for this week and the Weird Watsons.